Hoo-hoo, welcome. A teaching moment. Just had a surreal ticket. Dude put in a ticket about wanting to type different things at the same time on two different screens. As expected, the issue was that he had two monitors that were on duplicate instead of extend. I asked, "Oh, so right now the same thing is on both screens, but you want to be able to have different things on each screen, right?" And confused guy was like, "No, I can have different things on the screen. I want to be able to type on both. Does that make sense?" "Let's see if we're talking about the same thing," I said to extend. "Okay, now I can move this window between screens. Is that what you're looking for?" "Okay, so I can have my emails on one screen and my music on the other. How do I get it from one screen to another?" "Oh, well, that's easy." I explain how to drag windows and maximize to boot. "Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. So I don't need two keyboards for two different screens?" "You sure don't." This guy looks. I could see his team's profile pic and sounds around my age, probably mid-30s, and was missing the absolute bare basics of navigating Windows. He was very polite though, so I reveled in the rare opportunity to show someone the ropes of Windows of all things. Happy Tuesday! What a coincidence! Today is Tuesday. I could have done that. A story about an uninterruptible power supply. I'm one of the one or two techs at my company who covers two hardware regions. The first is my home location, and the second is well over an hour away. Naturally, when a proper hardware issue comes up in the secondary location, it's a real pain to coordinate a visit, since we've been short-staffed for the last 8 months. The users at these distant locations don't ever seem to understand that I can't just drop everything to waste half a day to head out there and back unless something is on fire. I was enjoying a good stretch of time where I hadn't have any issues at the secondary region, so it was about time that something were to come up. It came in the form of a failing UPS unit, uninterruptible power supply, for the uninitiated. After speaking with both my supervisors and the hardware lead, we all agreed that due to our current staffing condition, we would mail the UPS directly to the location, and I would walk them through switching the unit over the phone. I can already hear your collective groans, but do remember that this would essentially be me driving 1.5 hours one way to walk in and spend 5 minutes swapping the unit over before driving back. The company didn't want to reimburse me for the miles traveled, and they didn't want me away from my desk. I relay this to the location manager, who is immediately, I don't know how else to put this, terrified. He's not angry, he's not frustrated, he's afraid. As if the mere mention of doing anything remotely technical caused him absolute horror. He begins to almost plead that I drive out and do it myself, that nobody at the location has any idea how to do this. I assure him it isn't difficult, and as long as they follow my instructions, it will take 5 minutes max to square everything away. Note, I did mention this to my supervisors, who doubled down and said just do it over the phone anyway. I would have driven out if they gave me the green light, but they didn't. The manager reluctantly agrees, but says he will not be there the morning this needs to happen, and that the senior user will make the swap instead. He gives me their cell number, and we arrange a time first thing in the morning. I let the network team and admins know this location will be showing us down at this time and to ignore the alerts. I had an extra new UPS unit in my office, and it's a good thing I did, because this unit was slightly different in its setup than what I had used in the past. No, not more difficult to set up. It's much, much easier. No need to plug in a cable. You simply flip the battery over and plug it in. Keep this in mind. The next morning, I called the senior user 5 minutes earlier than we had scheduled, and it's a good thing I did. Turns out, This user has gone rogue and unplugged the old UPS unit well before I called, took the new one out of the box, and had been waiting for who knows how long, meaning the location had gone dark for that entire duration. I was a little horrified, but undaunted, I started walking him through the instructions. Flip the unit on its side and remove the side bottom panel. For some reason, this took him a good 2 minutes. Finally, it was off. Good, now pull the battery out, flip it over, and turn it around so the white arrows are pointing into the unit. The following silence began to last far too long, and I got nervous. I asked, "How's it looking?" He says, "I'm peeling off the stickers." I see horror. No, I didn't say to do that. You need to put them back exactly how they were. There are arrows indicating the proper side. We need to slide into the machine. A deep, deep sigh, followed by 2 more minutes of messing around. By some form of divine intervention, he was able to get the stickers on right again. I said, "Okay, now put the battery green side up back into the UPS. The arrows show you which way to put it in." 2 minutes of silence. I ask if he's okay. "Yes," he says. Another minute, another minute. Finally he says, "Okay, it's in." "Great," I say. "Now put the cover panel back on." 5 minutes follow of him grunting and muttering until he goes, "It's not going back on." Confused, I asked him to send me a picture. To my utter horror, he has somehow jammed the battery backwards into the machine and got it stuck there. The bits of plastic that I used to guide the battery in and keep it straight are now off-center and causing the siding of the UPS to bow outward. To top it all off, you can clearly see the white arrows poking out from the siding backwards, with big block text saying, "Insert this way." "All right," I say, "it's in backwards. You need to get it out and turn it around." Another deep sigh from him, as if him screwing up is my doing. 7 minutes of the most miserable muttering I've ever heard from a human being follow. And then, "Why can't someone just come out here and do this?" I'm thinking, because typically this is very hard to screw up this badly. I say nothing. A few moments later, he is simply unable to get this battery out. I tell him, "All right, put the other UPS unit back the way it was." Thankfully, this was the only thing he was able to do right, and the location came back online. While the UPS couldn't hold the battery on its own when plugged in like this, it becomes a glorified surge protector, again for the uninitiated. I ask if there's anyone else on location to help us. He says, "No, I'm the only one here." Which is strange, because this location is due to open now in 15 minutes. I tell him we will think of another course of action and to leave everything as is. Before I hang up, he says, "What about the keyboard?" "What keyboard?" "My keyboard." "What about your keyboard?" "Where do I plug it in?" "I'm not sure what you're talking about." "I had to unplug my keyboard. How do I get it back in?" "You... what? The keyboard for your station?" "Yes." Don't ask me why this person unplugged his keyboard when his computer was nowhere near the UPS closet. I say, you plug it into the USB port, the rectangle-looking one. There were ports in the front and the back. Another 5 minutes go by, more muttering, more cursing from him. I try to talk to him, as he seems to have me on speakerphone, but there's no answer. I call out to him several more times. Finally, he says, "Can you hear me?" Turns out he thought speakerphone has an unlimited range and was yelling at the phone a good distance away, thinking I could hear him. I tell him keep the phone close and I'll continue helping him. He then proceeds to walk far, far away from the phone, 4 more times, and every time I tell him not to. Then he says, "The keyboard is plugged in and still isn't working. Just come down here and fix everything. This is ridiculous." Yeah, you got that right. "Can you send me another picture?" I ask. I then receive the picture of his desktop, and I immediately see a pattern, a real modus operandi. This man has taken the keyboard's USB plug and jammed it into a display port, and while he claimed it was plugged in, you can clearly see the plug 3/4 of the way out of the port and at an extreme angle. While I'm explaining this, he begins yelling at someone else. "We are not open yet." I stop and listen. Silence. Then he tells me, "I have to go, there's a gas leak. The fire station is here." I just kind of stare at the phone for a beat. He then yells at me, "And send someone down here." Click. At this point, I'm reaching that glorious state of mind beyond anger and frustration, which leads into hysterical incredulity. If there really was a gas leak, I later found out there wasn't. Luckily, this new model of UPS doesn't require plugging in a cable that could potentially spark. I begin to wonder if he somehow hit a valve or pipe or something, but nothing came of this peripheral situation. Just another super fun speed bump. So at this point, I steady myself and begin the process of emailing my supervisors with all the details. I show them the pictures he sent me of the botched battery drop and the keyboard. And my supervisors say, "How the hell did he manage that?" True to corporate fashion, a decision on resolving this matter wasn't reached until that afternoon. At first, they wanted me to drive over the same day after all. I wouldn't have gotten home until much later in the evening, well beyond my normal hours. I would have done it if they asked. I wanted to see the senior user in person after all. But at the same time, I didn't want to cave to his demands of forcing me to drive over for something so stupid. What ended up happening was that one of my supers said they were headed that way for business the next day and could stop at the location to set the unit up themselves. Instead of that senior user being there, my super was let in by the MIA location manager, the one who was terrified of technology. My super told him what happened with the senior user. The location manager says, "Yeah, he gets like that." He gets like that? And you thought it was a good idea to have him in charge of this? Shoot, you thought it was a good idea to put someone like that in a senior position? Interesting. My super was able to remove the stuck battery in less than a minute and proceeds to show the location manager how to install the UPS. The location manager stares blankly for a moment and says, "Oh, that was all? I could have done that." How to get a reputation as a guru. I do not work in IT. This sub has told me I'm Tier 0 tech support. I work for a government agency. I have glorious titles, but what I really am is a fancy secretary for virtual meetings. This means I do a lot of computery stuff, occasionally with success. This occasional success has somehow created an undeserved reputation for me as a computer guru, even though I'm really just an end user who knows how to Google things. How, you ask? Here's an example. The office I work for is the equivalent of the principal's office in a school, the leadership office where everyone goes because we should know everything, right? This morning, a manager comes in, asking for help. She says they're trying to connect the computer to the big monitor in the conference room. I had the same question last week. They had plugged in a laptop, but couldn't get it to project on the screen. The laptop didn't have the keyboard shortcut key to connect to the monitor. Just as I was explaining that I wasn't sure how to do it without the shortcut, actual IT person arrived, and I snuck out the back. So I'm assuming this is the same problem. Hopefully this laptop has the shortcut. I tell her I'll help if I can, but if not, we might need IT. I enter the conference room. No laptop. The monitor is displaying no computer. Is it on? I asked which computer they're trying to connect. The manager points to the desktop computer. It's the one that lives in the conference room and is permanently connected to the monitor. Well, this should be easy. I don't need a keyboard shortcut or to dink around with monitor settings. It should already be set up. I ask, is it turned on? The manager, I think so. I checked and it looks like it's on. I look down at the tower. It's not on. And sorry, manager, it doesn't look like it's on. I press the power button. The screen hasn't changed. Give it a second to boot up. The monitor displays the login screen. I knew you could do it. You're the computer guru. And that, my friends, is how you become a guru. Read the screen, press a button, then exit to thunderous applause, at least in my imagination. How not to report an emergency water leak. I'm a dispatcher for a city water department, and sometimes we get panicky callers needing their water turned off for one reason or another. You'd think that you'd want a dispatcher to know the address of where you are and not fill a call with endless chatter so they could get the work done to get the crew there. Thankfully, I am allowed to hang up on people. Me, city water department. Hi, I'm over at my mother-in-law's house and we heard a weird noise out in the garage. So we went out there and there's water coming out of the foundation and we're trying to slow down. Sweep all the water away from the rest of the stuff in the garage and... Okay, stop. The caller pauses to let me get a word in. Where is this? In the garage, and we're trying to get all of this. I mean, what location? My mother-in-law's house, like I said, and we're trying to sweep all of this street address. 1234 ABC Street. There's just so much water, I didn't realize how much pressure. Okay, so you need an emergency shutoff of the water at the meter? The caller, talking super fast like the Micro Machine commercials. Well, at first we heard this kind of pop, but not really a pop exactly. And then you could hear water running, like when the washer is on. You can kind of hear how water moves through the pipes. Well, there was that sound, and we wondered what kind of thing inside the house would... Not answering the question at all. Me interrupting, talking over the top of him. So, I'm going to try to get a crew out to you as soon as I can to shut the water off. Is that what you need? The caller, still speaking super fast. Yes, after we realized there wasn't any kind of appliance we knew of, we tried to follow the sound of the water pipe to locate where in the house it could be, and then we realized it was mostly coming from the direction of the garage, and I don't need any of that information. I need to radio the crew, okay? Okay, and then we went out into the garage, and then we saw a bunch of weird movements, and thought, I wonder why that is moving, and then we realized maybe the water is moving them around, and then we turned the light on, and could feel the humidity of the garage, and... Me, station identifier to crew identifier over radio. No, I didn't say that. I said we heard a noise at the garage, and when we went out there, we took a look and couldn't see anything at first, until we realized... The crew identifier response. I have a code XYZ at 1234 ABC Street. And then we realized there maybe had been some kind of pipe bust out in the garage, but we... The crew on the radio, en route. And so then I was like, how are we going to get all of this water out of the way, of all the boxes? And then we were like... So the crew is on the way to 1234 ABC Street, okay? Can I get a first name and a callback number for the report? My name is Name, and my number is Number. Be sure to tell them we have a lot of boxes, and it's in the garage, and the garage door is open, and it's starting to... None of that is relevant to them. They're going to arrive on site as soon as they can and turn the water off near the curb. How you handle anything else is up to you. You can ask them any questions after they get there. Well, I just wanted to make sure that they knew it has to be soon, because there's this really big heavy brown box, the kind with the lid that you have to close together at the same time, or else it won't close right. And then the rest of the stuff you put on top will teeter to the side, Well, it has some pictures, and it's heavy to move, and if we didn't think of the brooms in the time, there would have been... They're on their way. Okay, great, and I hang up immediately. I get the report typed up, minus the essay, and the crew arrives and reports to me over the radio that they see no one on site. No garage door open, no water in the driveway. I dial the number the rep gave me. Hi, this is me, with the water department. Oh good, when are they going to show up? We have been sweeping the what? The crew is on site at the 1234 ABC Street. You told us. But there's no one there. Are you not at 1234 ABC Street? We're at my mother-in-law's house. I'm the son-in-law, and we have been sweeping to make sure it doesn't soak any of these really huge boxes, because we're not very strong, and it would take a long time to move. My crew is at 1234 ABC Street, and no one is there. 1234 ABC Street? Yes, that is my mother-in-law's house, and we're sweeping all this. Some lady in the background of the caller yelled something unclear. Oh, we are at 1234 JKL Street. I thought you said they were on site already. I mean, we're standing here and sweeping so the water doesn't get to the... They're going to pack up again and ride to that address, so you'll have to wait a bit longer. Well, hurry, these boxes are going to be soaked, and I don't know if all the pick... Station identifier to crew identifier over radio. No, we're at 1234 JKL, not those numbers you said. I'm talking to the crew on the radio. Okay, well, you sent them to the wrong address the first time. I was just making sure you didn't send them to the wrong one again, because we're trying to use brooms to push all of the water that's gushing out of the concrete out into the driveway, and we're sweeping and sweeping, and we're worried that some of the boxes, well, one big box in particular, might be, but the others might have something in them, like... The wrong address is the one you gave us to go to. I told you I was at my mother-in-law's house, and we've been waiting here for them. We would have seen them. You clearly... They're on the way now to 1234 JKL Street. Okay, good, and be sure... I hang up. Thankfully, I didn't need to talk to them anymore after that, but bless the undying patience of that mother-in-law. Oh god, that was so annoying to read. I hope it's also annoying to listen to. A laptop screen turns off in the third floor meeting room. One early spring morning, a ticket comes in, titled, "Laptop screen turns off in the third floor meeting room." This sounds too good to be true, of course, so we call the user and ask for some more details. Apparently, this issue comes up frequently, nearly every time they are in that specific meeting room, never at their desk. To see if we can figure out the issue, we schedule a time when we can meet in this room and ask the user to use their laptop as they normally would during a meeting. Of course, the laptop screen stays on, and we conclude that this is a user issue and not equipment issue. Probably just the user pressing the sleep button on the keyboard. The user did not like this, but went their way. Few weeks later, a new ticket comes in. Laptop screen turned off again. We told the user to be careful around the F keys and close the ticket. Some days later, the ticket is reopened and the user informs us they did not touch the keyboard when the screen turned off. A new laptop is issued just in case, but the issue kept coming back. At this point, we were all convinced that the user kept pressing the sleep button and decided not to pursue this anymore. About a month later, a colleague was helping this user with an unrelated issue when the laptop screen turned off. This time, the user was a few feet away from the laptop. My colleague lifted their hands up, probably by surprise, and the screen came back on. Then put the hand back on the keyboard, and it turned off again. This laptop did not use a hinge mechanism to detect if the lid was closed, but instead magnets. So when the magnets in their watch came close enough to the one on the laptop, the screen turned itself off. This only happened in the third floor meeting room for the user, because this is where they used their laptop outside the docking, and when we initially went to investigate, the user was standing, creating a gap large enough between their wrist and the laptop to not have an effect on the magnets. Sometimes the user might just not be the issue. Apparently, if it uses electricity, it's an IT issue. Earlier this year, I was hired on a small factory to provide IT support. This mostly consists of working support tickets, update software, Windows versions, create user logins for the software they use in production, but I get called out to the line for various reasons people think are related to IT. So, one day I'm in my office going over some notes about an upcoming project when I get a call to come down to maintenance. When I get there, The maintenance tech tells me that their big bay door wasn't working and wants me to look at it. Me. I don't know anything about doors. Maintenance tech. Well, it's your department, so you need to find out how to get it working. How on earth does a bay door fall under the IT umbrella? It uses electricity, doesn't it? So does a toaster, but you don't call IT when your bread isn't browning. Eventually, another maintenance tech was walking by and heard our commotion. He sprang into action. Apparently, the little laser sensor comes loose sometimes. About a week later, I get called out to the line urgently because a piece of equipment isn't working. Same maintenance tech from before. After checking it out, it appeared the programming wasn't doing what it's supposed to. I'm entry-level IT. I'm not messing with the coding of a piece of production equipment. Yeah, I'll get a hold of engineering. Well, that's technically your job. If that was my job, I'd be doing it. That's above my pay grade, and I'm not getting fired for screwing up something the line can't run without. So you're just passing your work off again. Listen, if it connects to the internet and you're having problems with it, that's an IT issue. Other than that, it's not my department. This maintenance tech continued to call me about things that were obviously not IT, including, but not limited to, an HVAC system, the huge bay door again, a forklift, and most recently because he received a ticket to mount TVs. When I explained to him, IT only does the cable drop, maintenance does the actual hardware mounting, it once again caused a kerfuffle that I needed to call his boss to explain that if it was my job to mount the TV, he wouldn't have gotten the ticket for it. Kerfuffle. Computer number. I'm still in training, so when weird stuff happens, I get waved over as a learning opportunity. This happened on Friday. A really upset user called in, saying that his program wasn't loading. As soon as my trainer took the call and heard the guy's voice, he waved me over to listen in. The guy. There's a line of people waiting and this program isn't open. I need someone down here to open this program right now. My coworker. Okay, we can help, but can I first get the code for your computer? It's a whole line of people. Do you understand that? I understand, but to help I need your computer number, so I can connect. You're not coming down here? You heard me say I have a line of people, and I can't help them until you help me. Computer number. 5545466. The guy kept going on, but my coworker didn't say anything else. Just connected to his machine, double-clicked the icon, and we finally watched the program he needed load, right up like normal. Finally, the guy stopped ranting. The coworker hung up without waiting for the guy to say anything. He said these are the kind of calls I'll have to get used to. Said that the user's number one solution is always for someone to come down to the floor and not to get tricked by that. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm a little bit sick, so I hope my voice doesn't sound too bad. But anyways, see you next time. Bye-bye. And when we initially, oh no.